In today's world, deaths from bacterial infections have fallen dramatically. Thanks to antibiotics, diseases that once killed millions are now often cured with a few days of medicine. Treatments for pneumonia, infected wounds, and many other bacterial diseases have saved countless lives. In fact, modern antibiotics are estimated to have saved hundreds of millions of people since their discovery. But it was not always this way. Just 100 years ago, the smallest injury could kill you. A scraped knee, a cut from a kitchen knife, a routine surgery. Before antibiotics, bacteria were among humanity's deadliest enemies. To understand the true effect of antibiotics, we need to go back, way back. Before moon landing, before the Cold War, before the nuclear bomb. In the early 1900s, infectious diseases caused nearly half of all deaths worldwide. Pneumonia alone killed about 30% of those infected, while bacterial infections from wounds frequently led to deadly blood poisoning. In 1900, bacteria-linked infections like pneumonia, tuberculosis, diarrhea and diphtheria caused 1/3 of all deaths in the US. Doctors could clean wounds. They could amputate infected limbs. But once bacteria spread through the body, there was often nothing they could do. The problem became even worse during World War I. Battlefields were filled with wounded soldiers. Many survived bullets and explosions, only to die days later from infection. At the time, nearly 20% of wounded soldiers died from infected wounds, including gangrene and sepsis. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Doctors watched patients die from infections they could not stop. But in a laboratory in London, one scientist was searching for a different answer. His name, Alexander Fleming. At St. Mary's Hospital, Fleming spent his days studying bacteria under a microscope. He believed nature might already hold the key to fighting these invisible killers. Then, in 1928, something unexpected happened. Before leaving for vacation, Fleming left several Petri dishes in his laboratory. Each dish contained colonies of dangerous bacteria. When he returned weeks later, one of the dishes had been contaminated by a strange mold. Normally, contamination meant the experiment had failed. But Fleming noticed something unusual. Around the mold, the bacteria had disappeared. A clear circle surrounded the mold, where the bacteria could not grow. Something produced by the mold was killing them. The mold was later identified as Penicillium notatum. Fleming realized it released a powerful antibacterial substance. He named it penicillin. It was a groundbreaking discovery. But turning that discovery into medicine was not easy. Penicillin was extremely difficult to isolate and produce in large amounts. Fleming published his findings, but for years the world struggled to turn the mold into a practical treatment. More than a decade later, researchers at University of Oxford revisited Fleming's work. Two scientists, Howard Florey and Ernst Borischain, began experimenting with ways to purify and produce penicillin. Their work finally transformed Fleming's discovery into a usable drug. Then history intervened. In 1939, the world plunged into World War II. Once again, millions of soldiers were wounded in battle. And once again, infection threatened to kill them. But this time, doctors had something new. Penicillin. When the drug was given to infected patients, the results were remarkable. Deadly infections began to disappear. Fevers dropped. Wounds healed. Patients who once would have died, survived. Governments quickly realized the importance of this new medicine. Factories were built to produce penicillin on a massive scale. By 1945, millions of doses were being manufactured and distributed to hospitals around the world. For the first time in history, doctors had a reliable weapon against bacterial infections. Penicillin marked the beginning of the antibiotic era. A discovery that started with an accidental mold in a forgotten laboratory dish became one of the most important medical breakthroughs of all time. In 1945, Fleming was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, along with Ernst Chain and Howard Florey, who helped develop penicillin into a widely available medical product. Since its discovery, penicillin and other antibiotics have saved hundreds of millions of lives. And it all began with one scientist, one observation, and one remarkable mold.